I paid a guy to be my boyfriend. But now his mother is planning our wedding and I don't think I can walk away. My ex was marrying the woman he cheated on me with and I was invited. Most people in their right mind would refuse. But I couldn't. You see, my ex Brandon had invited my entire university friend group to the wedding. He knew everyone had a partner except me. He wanted to prove one last time that no one could love me. What he didn't know was that he would get exactly the opposite. After venting, my roommate suggested I look for someone on a rental dating app. It's like hiring a photographer or a DJ, she said. You're contracting a service and they're all very professional with clear rules. The app was full of attractive people willing to be your date for events. $500 for a weekend. Professional actors who make you look good and then disappear. In the end, I chose a strikingly handsome guy named Caleb. He had an MBA from Harvard, rescue dogs, and a jawline I knew would make my ex grind his teeth. Brandon sent me a form asking for pages of information about myself. From my favorite color to secrets only a partner would know. We invented an elaborate story of how we met romantically in a park. One of his rescue dogs broke loose and ran straight to me. For him it was love at first sight. Caleb was incredibly professional and honestly it made me wonder how many clients he had worked with. I sent half the money by wire and he showed up at my apartment the morning of the wedding. Somehow looking even better than in the photos. He brought a corsage that matched my dress. Ready to go? He smiled. The truth? No, I said laughing. He extended his hand, held mine, and guided me toward his Lexus. Caleb drove with one hand on the wheel. The other rested on his leg, relaxed, as if taking a stranger to his ex's wedding was just something he did any Saturday. I stared out the window. The corsage was on my left wrist. He had brought it that morning in a small box, without saying anything, placing it on the entry table like someone leaving keys. I opened it alone. White flowers, green detail, exactly the right shade to match the border of my dress. In the form I had written olive green. Nothing more. He had figured it out. I didn't know what to do with that detail as the Lexus moved down the highway. I looked at him twice, then stopped looking. Are you nervous? Caleb asked, eyes on the road. No, I said. Silence. Good, he said and said nothing more. He didn't ask if I was sure. He didn't offer any of those phrases people use when they don't know what else to say. He nodded slightly and kept driving. That was the first thing I noticed. That he didn't fill the silence. 3 weeks earlier, my roommate had opened the envelope while I was on a call. When I hung up, she was standing in the kitchen with the envelope in her hand. And an expression I couldn't quite read. It's a wedding invitation, she said. I know, from Brandon. I know, she looked at me. What are you going to do? That night I didn't sleep, not because I was devastated, but because I understood exactly what Brandon was doing. He had invited the whole university group. Everyone had a partner. Everyone was coming with someone and he knew. The whole group knew. That I was the only one who wasn't. He wanted to see me arrive alone. He wanted that to be his last image of me. I know him well. It was my roommate who found the app. She showed it to me on her phone as if introducing me to a specialist. It's like hiring a photographer or a DJ, she said. You're contracting a service. They are very professional with clear rules. The app had detailed profiles, photos, descriptions, availability, rates. $500 for the weekend. Caleb had 4.5 stars, an MBA from Harvard, 2 rescue dogs, and a jawline I knew instantly would make Brandon clench his teeth the moment he saw him walk in with me. I chose him for that, only for that. He sent me a form that same night. It wasn't short. It had sections on ex history, social group dynamics, physical contact preferences, forbidden topics, agreed love story, more detailed than any brief I had received from a client in years. I filled it in 2 hours. For how we met, he proposed 3 options. I chose the park one. One of his rescue dogs had broken loose and run straight to me. For him it was love at first sight. I had told him dogs loose in public parks were irresponsible. He had laughed. He had found it adorable. It sounded real to me. Perfect stories. No one believes them. I sent half the money by wire. On the wedding day he appeared at 10 in the morning. Looking better than in the photos. The corsage in a box. The right suit. The right shoes. No extra gestures. Ready to go? He smiled. The truth? No, I said laughing. He extended his hand, held mine, and guided me toward his Lexus. And there we were on the highway with the corsage on my wrist. 20 minutes left. How many events have you done? I asked. Enough. That's not an answer. No, it's not. He changed lanes. Why do you ask? Curiosity. Or are you calculating if I'm going to make a mistake? I turned to look at him. He kept his eyes on the road. Both, I said. I didn't know what to do with that answer. With Brandon, any direct question ended in defense or counter-accusation. Caleb had simply said both and kept driving. We arrived 12 minutes before the ceremony began. Caleb parked, turned off the engine, and stayed still for a moment. One thing before we go in, he said. What? Tell me something real, something that wasn't in the form. Why? Because if someone asks us a question we didn't cover, I need something true to pull the answer from. Invented details show, real ones don't. He was right, it was work logic, there was nothing personal in that question. And yet I took longer than normal to answer. I'm scared they'll look at me and everyone will know exactly why I'm here. I said. And that no one will believe me anyway. Caleb nodded slowly, and if they told you they do believe it, then I'd want to know why. He got out, walked around the front, and opened my door from outside. He extended his hand. Because it's obvious you don't need to prove anything, he said. That shows without a form. I stepped out of the car. I didn't know what to answer. I put my hand in his and we walked toward the church entrance. When the doors opened and the group saw us enter, I heard someone gasp. I didn't look to see who it was. Caleb leaned his head toward me, almost to my lips. There's Brandon, 3 meters to your left. He already saw us. I didn't look. I kept walking. I sat between Caleb and the wall. 4 rows from the altar. From there I could see the back of Brandon's neck, his navy suit, the fresh haircut more polished than usual. She entered on her father's arm. I heard someone say behind me, how beautiful. She was beautiful. I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. What I didn't expect was to feel nothing. Nothing that hurt, nothing that burned. Only that particular distance of someone seeing something that no longer belongs to them. And deep down doesn't even want to recover. Caleb had his arm resting on the back of the pew, not on my shoulders, but behind. With enough distance so it wasn't invasive, but enough closeness that from behind it read that we were a couple. He had done it without me asking. When the ceremony ended, my friend Lucia appeared before we could move. Hi, she hugged me, then she looked at Caleb with that expression I know. Quick evaluation, provisional conclusion, I'm Lucia. Caleb gave her a firm handshake. Without the excess friendliness people use when they want to be liked. Where did you two meet? In a park, Caleb said. My dog made the decision for me. Lucia looked at me. I nodded. She processed something and smiled in a way I couldn't read. I'm glad you came with someone. She left. Caleb looked at me sideways. Was that good or bad? I'm not sure. Normally you can read her. Normally yes. Then something changed. I didn't answer because Brandon appeared at that moment with her on his arm. Receiving congratulations. When he saw us, his eyes lingered on Caleb exactly the time I expected. 2 seconds longer than natural. Congratulations, I said. He looked at Caleb. Let me introduce you to Caleb. The two shook hands. Brandon held the grip 1 second longer than necessary. Where did you meet? In a park, Caleb said. It's been a while. How long? Caleb looked at me, giving me the answer. Long enough, I said. Brandon nodded. She pulled him by the arm and they left. Caleb waited until they were far away. Long enough, he repeated. You used my same word. Does it bother you? It works. We walked toward the cocktail garden. He took 2 glasses of champagne and handed me one. What did you feel when you saw him? He asked. Is that also part of the service? No, it's curiosity. He had the glass in his hand but hadn't drunk. He looked at me with attention that didn't seem like acting. Nothing that hurt, I said. That surprised me. Why does it surprise you not to feel pain? Because I spent $500 preparing to feel it. He took a slow sip. Maybe you had already processed it before and didn't know it. I didn't answer, not because I had no answer, but because I wasn't sure it was a lie. The cocktail continued. Caleb answered questions. He laughed at the right moments. He put his hand on my lower back when Brandon's brother approached with too much interest. And too much whiskey on his breath. Nothing he did was excessive. Nothing was insufficient. When they called us to the dining hall, he leaned toward me. How are you? Fine. Sure. Yes. Why do you ask twice? Because the first time sounded automatic. I entered the hall without answering. But he was right, it had sounded automatic. And what bothered me wasn't that he noticed, but realizing I had been giving that answer for years. And no one had questioned it. No one, except the man I paid $500 to be here. The dinner was in a hall with windows overlooking the garden. Round tables. White flower centers. Candles no one had lit yet because there was still light outside. We were seated with 3 couples from the university group, Marcus and his girlfriend, Claudia and her husband, and Renata with the man she had been presenting as her friend for 2 years. Though no one believed it. Caleb pulled out my chair before sitting. He didn't do it with gestures. He did it as if it was the next thing on the list. Marcus looked at me with that smile I have known since 3rd year of university. The one he uses when he's processing something and doesn't want it to show. I didn't know you were dating someone, he said. Well, now you do, I said. How long? Caleb answered before I could. Long enough, he said. Then he asked Marcus what he did for work. And Marcus started talking about his company and the subject changed without anyone forcing it. I watched him do it. It was quick, clean, without seeming like a maneuver. Marcus didn't even notice. The menu was 3 courses. While serving the appetizer, Claudia leaned toward me from the next seat. He's handsome, she said in a low voice with that specific intonation married women have when they approve something. I know, I said. Where did you find him? In a park. She looked at me expecting more. I didn't give her more. She smiled as if that was answer enough and turned to her husband. Caleb at that moment was listening to Marcus talk about an investment he had made in some sector. He nodded at the right moments. He asked short questions that gave Marcus the chance to keep talking. It was the kind of attention that makes people feel interesting. I watched him work and tried to remind myself that this was exactly what it was. Work. Brandon toasted from the main table. He thanked everyone for being there. He said that day was the most important of his life. He looked at his new wife with an expression I recognized. Because he had given it to me once at the beginning, when he still cared about impressing me. I looked away. Caleb was looking at me. He didn't say anything. I only noticed because at that moment I wasn't looking at him and yet I felt he was looking at me. When I turned, he already had his eyes on Marcus again. They served the main course. Renata took the chance to ask Caleb about the dogs. I saw on Instagram you have rescues, she said. Caleb doesn't have Instagram. That wasn't in the app profile, but he answered without blinking. 2. A Labrador and a Shepherd mix I found on the road. He paused. The Labrador bites shoes. I've already lost 3 pairs. Renata laughed. Her companion asked what breed the mix was. Caleb described the dog with enough detail to sound real. And enough vagueness that no one could verify it. I took a sip of wine and said nothing. After dinner there was dancing. The DJ played something slow first for the couples. And the 3 couples at our table got up. Renata dragged her friend to the floor even though he didn't want to. Caleb and I stayed alone at the table. Dance? He asked. We don't have to. I didn't ask if we have to. I looked at him. He waited without pressure. Yes, I said, but not well. Neither do I. We got up on the floor. He put one hand on my waist and took the other. Correct distance. Not too close. Not so far it looked uncomfortable. Exactly what looks good from outside. I saw Brandon at the edge of the floor. He was talking to someone but looking at us sideways. Not at me. Caleb. Brandon is watching us. I know. He's been doing it since we sat down. And nothing. I'm just registering it. We danced in silence for a moment. The song was slow. One of those without clear lyrics. Just instruments and something that seems like a voice but isn't quite. Can I ask you something that's not in the protocol? I said. You can ask. Has it ever happened to you that a client gets complicated? He didn't answer immediately. That I already knew. He didn't fill silences. More complicated than starting to feel things that weren't in the form. Yes, he said without hesitation. What do you do when it happens? I finish the event. Return the money. I explain I can't continue and it usually works. And when it doesn't work? He looked at me. It was the first time all day I felt him looking at me. Without anyone else to direct the attention to. So far it has always worked, he said. The song ended. He released my hand and my waist with the same practical gesture with which he had taken the champagne glasses. No drama, no calculated slowness, no sign of anything. We returned to the table. Renata was already there with her companion, who finally seemed more relaxed. They ordered another round. Caleb ordered water. I ordered the same. At 10:30 the party began to loosen. People said goodbye in groups. Marcus approached to give me a hug and told Caleb it had been a pleasure. With that sincerity of a man who just met someone and liked him without quite knowing why. Caleb responded the same, firm, direct, without excess. When we left to the parking lot, the air was colder than when we arrived. We walked in silence to the Lexus. He opened my door. I sat down. He walked around the car and sat at the wheel. Neither of us said anything for a moment. "How did it go?" he asked. It was the same question as before at the cocktail, but this time it didn't sound like protocol. "Better than I expected," I said. "What did you expect? That it would hurt more?" He started the engine, left the parking lot slowly waiting for another car to pass. "The second half of the payment," I said. "I'll send it tomorrow." "Okay." Silence. "Caleb, yes. That question I asked you on the dance floor. About clients who get complicated." "Yes." I didn't know how to finish the question. Or maybe I did and didn't want to. "Nothing," I said. "Thank you for today." "You're welcome." He drove toward my apartment without asking for the address. He had it in the form. I had forgotten that too. On Monday morning I transferred the second half of the payment. $500 total. Caleb confirmed with a short message. "Received. It was a pleasure working with you." I read it twice. Then I closed the app. My roommate was in the kitchen when I came out of my room. She looked at me the way she does when she wants to ask something but is waiting for me to open first. "How was it?" she said finally. Good. Good. Or good like when you don't want to talk. Good like when I don't know what to say yet." She nodded. She served coffee in 2 cups. And passed me one without asking if I wanted. We didn't talk more about the subject. On Tuesday afternoon a message arrived from a number I didn't have saved. "I'm Caleb. I saved your number from the form. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to know how you were after the weekend." I read it 3 times. Then I went to the app and searched the service terms if that was allowed. I found nothing that explicitly prohibited it, but nothing that authorized it either. I answered after 20 minutes. "I'm fine. Is this part of post-event follow-up?" His answer came quickly. "No, there is no post-event follow-up." And then, after a pause, "Can I invite you for coffee?" I left it unanswered that night. Not because I didn't know what to answer, but because I knew exactly what I was going to answer and I wanted to be sure it was for the right reasons. The next day I wrote, "Thursday is fine." The coffee was at a place he chose. 10 minutes from my apartment. I arrived on time. He was already inside, at a table in the back, with 2 menus we hadn't ordered yet. He stood up when he saw me enter. It wasn't protocol. No one was watching. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Of course." We sat down, ordered. Brief silence while the waiter walked away. "How are the dogs?" I asked. "Which dogs?" I looked at him. He held it for a moment and then said, "The Labrador is fine. The Shepherd mix does exist." The Labrador thing I made up on the spot. Why a Labrador specifically? Because Renata seemed like the type of person who trusts Labradors more than any other breed. I didn't know whether to laugh or not. In the end I laughed a little and so did he. "That's why you chose that park story," he said. "Because it sounded real. Because perfect stories, no one believes them." He nodded. "Same thing I think when I build the forms." The coffee arrived. Neither of us touched it immediately. "Caleb," I said, "why did you write to me?" I asked directly because we had already had enough conversations where I left things half finished. He drummed once with his finger on the table. A small gesture. The first I had seen that didn't seem calculated. "Because on the dance floor you ask me what I do when a client gets complicated," he said. "And I didn't give you the complete answer." "What is the complete answer?" "That until that Saturday it had always worked to finish the event and return the money." He took his coffee. "That Saturday it didn't work for me." I looked at him. He held my gaze without adding anything more. Without explaining. Without softening the phrase with context. "That's a problem," I said. "I know. Because I was your client. I know. And because this." I pointed to the table. "The coffee, the place, wasn't in any form." "No," he said, "it wasn't." I leaned back in the chair. I thought about what he had just told me and what he hadn't said, which was equally clear. "What do you propose?" I said. "Nothing yet. I just wanted to be direct with you before proposing anything." That stopped me, not because it was unexpected, but because it had been a long time since someone told me something difficult without trying to accommodate it first. "So it would sound better. How long have you been doing this?" I asked. "The service? 3 years. And never before?" "Never before." "Why me?" He thought. Not the pause of someone looking for the right answer, but of someone who has several and is choosing the most honest. Because when I asked you something real, before entering the church, you answered something real. Most clients give me what they think I want to hear. You told me you were afraid no one would believe you. He paused. That wasn't in the form and it wasn't part of the service. And yet you said it. I didn't answer immediately. Outside, a truck passed that made the window glass vibrate. The waiter cleaned a nearby table. Someone asked for the check loudly from the back. I don't know what to do with what you're telling me, I said. You don't have to know now. But you do know what you want. Yes. And what is it? To know you, without form, without event, without service. He said it without lowering his voice, without rushing. If you want the same, we see how it works. If not, I apologize for using your number without warning and I won't write to you again. I finished my coffee. I looked at the table for a moment, then at him. There's a problem, I said. What? That I already saw you work. I know how you act when you want something to work. I know how you sound when you're being professional. I put the cup on the plate. I don't know when it's you. He wasn't bothered. He didn't get defensive. It's a fair question, he said, and I have no way to prove it to you right now. I can only tell you that on Saturday when I asked how you were and you said fine and it sounded automatic. I didn't ask again because it was part of the job. He looked at me. I asked because I wanted to. He left it there. We asked for the check. He paid before I could take out my wallet. He didn't do it as a gesture. He did it as someone who had already made a small decision and executed it. We went out together to the street. Before we separated, he said, "You don't have to decide anything today." I know, I said. I walked toward my apartment without turning around. But that night, while checking my phone for no specific reason, I stopped at the message thread with him. And didn't archive it. I didn't delete it either. On Friday morning the doorbell rang. My roommate was at work. I was in pajamas with a client call about to start. I opened without checking who it was. Because I was expecting a package. It wasn't a package. It was a woman about 60 years old. Short hair with grey, flowered blouse, and a cloth bag in each hand that smelled of something cooked. She looked at me with a smile that didn't ask permission. "You must be her," she said. I didn't know what to answer because I didn't know who, her, was in that sentence. "I'm Caleb's mom," she said. "Can I come in?" She entered before I said yes. She settled in my kitchen as if she knew it. Put the bags on the table. Took out 2 containers, a cloth napkin folded in 4, and the jar of sauce that she placed in the center. As if it were the reference point of everything else. "Caleb doesn't know I'm here," she said. Without me asking how she got my address. The same way mothers get everything. She sat down, pointed to the chair across from me. "Sit down, please. This won't take long." I sat down. I had the call in 20 minutes. I didn't say anything about that. "My son talks little," she began. "He has always been like that. When he was a boy I would ask him how school went. And he would say, good or bad, depending on the day, and nothing more." She opened one of the containers. "Rice. But last week he called me twice in one day. Caleb doesn't call twice in a week." "What did he tell you?" "Nothing specific. He asked me if I believed it was possible to truly know someone in a short time." She closed the container. She looked at me. "Caleb doesn't ask philosophical questions." That was enough for me. I didn't know if what I felt at that moment was alarm or something different that didn't have a name yet. "Mom," I said, "I think there's something you don't know. Probably there are many things I don't know. Tell me one." I breathed. "Caleb and I met through an app. He provided me a service. I paid him." She didn't react the way I expected. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't upset. She didn't change expression. "I know," she said. "You know? I know what my son does. I'm not stupid." She served rice on a plate. She had taken from my cupboard without asking permission. "What I don't know is why he called me twice in one day. After working with you." She put the plate in front of me. "Eat," she said. "You talk better when you're not hungry." I wasn't hungry. I ate anyway because I didn't know how not to. "How long has he been doing that job?" I asked. 3 years. Since he finished his master's and didn't find work in his field." Immediately she served for herself. "At first he didn't tell me anything. I found out on my own." I asked. He explained. "I told him to make his decisions and to let me know if something changed." She paused. He had never let me know anything until last week. He hadn't told me he had told her anything. He hadn't told her anything. That's why I came. Because when Caleb starts asking questions he doesn't ask. Someone has to move. She looked at me and he wasn't going to move fast. I understood at that moment. She hadn't come to pressure me or to plan anything. She had come to see who I was. Before her son made a mistake or let something pass. What do you want to know? I said. I'm already seeing it. She ate a little. Caleb told me you're a designer. Freelance. Do you like it? Yes. Why? I thought for a second. Because every project starts from zero and ends in something concrete. There is no ambiguity in whether you did it well or not. Or if it works or not. She nodded slowly. Caleb is the same. He doesn't know how to live in ambiguity. She looked at me. That's why that job works for him. Everything has rules. Everything has a beginning and an end. Everything is measurable. And do you think that's a problem? I think it's a problem. When he meets someone who doesn't fit into any of his categories. She wiped her mouth with the cloth napkin. You weren't a normal client. I knew that when he called me. I don't know if I'm what he thinks I am. I said. No one knows at the beginning. Mom, I don't want to be disrespectful, but you came without warning me. You settled in my kitchen. And you're having a conversation I didn't ask to have. She wasn't bothered. She nodded. You're right, she said. Do you want me to leave? I thought. It was the honest question and it deserved an honest answer. No, I said. Good. She pointed to my plate. Finish eating. We ate in silence for a moment. Outside a motorcycle passed. My phone vibrated. The notification that the client call was starting in 5 minutes. I ignored it. What do you want me to do with all this? I said. Nothing you don't want to do. She picked up her plate and took it to the sink. I just wanted to see you. Caleb chooses well at work. But personally he has made the same mistake twice. He stays quiet until it's too late. She washed the plate without me telling her where the soap was. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I came to know if the person he's considering breaking his own rules for is worth it. She looked at me from the sink. Eat the rice, that's getting cold. She dried her hands, picked up the cloth bags, and walked toward the door. Before leaving she turned. Don't tell him I came, she said. Not yet. Why? Because I want to see if he moves on his own. A pause. If he doesn't move in 2 weeks, then yes, I'll tell him. She closed the door. I stayed in the kitchen with the half-eaten plate of rice. And the client call that had started 4 minutes earlier and I hadn't joined. I sent a message to the client. Emergency. Can we reschedule? Then I opened the message thread with Caleb. I didn't write anything, but I stared at it for a long time. Caleb wrote to me on Saturday. Not the Saturday after his mother's visit. The Saturday of the same week as the coffee. 4 days after we had said goodbye on the street. And I had walked without turning around. Do you have plans this afternoon? I read it at 11 in the morning. I answered at 11:15. Nothing fixed. Why? I want to show you something. It's not a date if you don't want it to be a date. But if you want it to be a date, it can be too. I saved it without answering for 20 minutes. Then I wrote, what time? He picked me up at 3. This time in a different car. Older, a grey sedan with the back seat upholstery slightly peeling in one corner. The Lexus, he explained while driving, is for work. This is mine. That told me something. I didn't quite know how to name at the moment. We drove north of the city to a park I didn't know. With tall trees and an esplanade. Where several dogs were loose and their owners stood in groups talking. Do you really have dogs? I said when he parked. 1. The shepherd mix. I leave him with my mother during the week because there's no space in my apartment. And the invented Labrador. I already told you. We got out. 2 minutes later his mother appeared from the other side of the esplanade. With a medium-sized dog with dark brown fur pulling the leash with enthusiasm. I stopped. Caleb also stopped. He looked at the dog, then at his mother, then at me. I didn't know she was going to be here, he said. I believed him because his expression wasn't that of someone who had organized something. It was someone recalculating. His mother reached us, handed him the leash without saying anything special. Greeted Caleb with a kiss on the cheek and then looked at me. How nice that you could come, she said. As if we knew each other from before. Caleb looked at both of us. Do you know each other? His mother didn't answer. Neither did I. He waited a moment and then looked at the dog. That at that point was sniffing my shoe with professional interest. It's fine, Caleb said and didn't ask more. We walked the three of us along the esplanade. The dog was called Treble. A fact Caleb gave me. Without me asking. As if he needed to establish something concrete in the middle of what I had just discovered. His mother walked with us the first 10 minutes and then said she had to make a call. And stayed on a bench. Caleb and I continued alone. When was it? He said. Friday. What did she tell you? Not to tell you she had gone. He let out air through his nose. It wasn't exactly annoyance. It was the resignation of someone who recognizes a pattern. She does it when she cares about something. He said, she moves before I do. Does it bother you? It bothers me less than it should. He looked at me. Because she's right that I move slowly and this time I don't want to arrive late. I looked at him for a moment. The sun was going down and the light was different from the morning. More horizontal, and it made everything look more defined than it really was. Then move, I said. Dinner with me tonight? Yes. Without it being a service. Without a form. Without an agreed story. Yes. Can I choose the place? Yes. We walked toward the car. He didn't take my hand. I didn't expect him to yet. But when he opened the door of the grey sedan, the one with the peeling upholstery, the one that was his and not for work, I knew that was also part of the answer. The dinner was at a place that had no visible name from the street. Just a number and a dark wooden door. Caleb opened it without checking his phone. Without searching any app, he knew it. Inside there were 10 tables, all occupied. The waiter greeted him by name. They sat us in the back. You come often, I said, when I need to think. The food is good and they don't play music. They didn't play music. He was right. We ordered. Caleb ordered without hesitation. Without the slow menu review people do when they don't know what they want. I ordered the same as him because I didn't know the place and because I had already decided. That night I wasn't going to spend energy on small decisions. The water arrived. Neither of us said anything for a moment. I have a question, I said. Tell me. When you arrived at my apartment on the wedding day, the corsage, the suit, the exact time. I looked at him. Do you always arrive like that or was it specific for that event? Why? Because the work works if the other person can relax and the other person only relaxes. If they don't have to be watching if I make a mistake. He took water. If I arrive late or with the wrong detail, you spend the whole wedding compensating and that shows. And if the detail is too perfect, that also shows. Yes, that's why the corsage had one flower that didn't match exactly. A 2% margin. I processed it. You're telling me you made it imperfect. On purpose. A little. So it would look real. So it wouldn't look calculated down to the last millimeter. I stayed silent for a moment. Then I said, that's very calculated. I know. It's the part of the job. That's hardest for me to explain. The food arrived. It was good. We ate without rushing. In the middle of dinner Caleb said, can I ask you something? Yes. What did you expect to happen after the wedding? Before I wrote to you, I thought. It was a question I hadn't asked myself in those terms. Nothing, I said. I expected nothing to happen. For the weekend to end. For me to feel better about having gone. And for everything to go back to being the same. And if that had happened, it would have been fine. Really, yes. I put the fork on the plate. I didn't go to that wedding looking for something. I went to close something and I closed it. What I didn't expect was for the closure to come. With a variable that wasn't in the plan. I am the variable. You are the variable. No, he smiled widely. Just a small line at the corner. The same minimal gesture I had seen him do twice before. Does it bother you? He said. I'm still determining that. We finished eating. The waiter cleared the plates. Caleb ordered coffee. I ordered the same. There's something I need to tell you, I said when the waiter left. Tell me. I don't know how to tell when it's you and when it's the job. You told me yourself at the coffee. And it's still true. I put my hands on the table. And I'm not telling you so you convince me. That you can already distinguish it. I'm telling you because it's the real problem and I don't want to ignore it. Caleb didn't answer immediately. That pause I already knew. It wasn't discomfort. It was that he was really thinking. It's a real problem, he said. You're right and I have no way to solve it quickly. The only way to know when it's me is with time. He looked at me. What I can tell you is when it started to be different with the wedding. When I asked you what you were going to tell me. Before entering the church. That wasn't in the protocol. I asked because I wanted to know. A pause. And when you answered what you answered, I could no longer treat the rest of the day as work. Why that specific answer? Because you didn't give me what you wanted me to hear. You gave me what you were feeling. Even if it left you at a disadvantage. He took the coffee that had just arrived. People don't do that, especially not with someone they're paying to look good. I let it settle for a moment. Caleb, yes. If this doesn't work, what happens with your job? Nothing. I keep working without it being uncomfortable. It already is. That doesn't change whether this works or not. Then why risk it? He looked at me directly. Because the other thing, that nothing happens and I know I let something pass. is worse. We paid. This time I put half before he could take out his wallet. He didn't protest. We went out to the street. The night was clear and it was less cold than on the wedding day. We walked half a block to where the grey sedan was. One more thing, I said before he opened the door. Tell me. Your mother said you were going to wait 2 weeks before moving and you wrote to me 4 days. After we had coffee, he didn't say anything. What happened with the 2 weeks? A pause. I couldn't, he said. I looked at him. He held my gaze without adding context. Without expanding the answer. Without doing anything more with those 2 words. I couldn't. They were the 2 most direct words he had said to me in all the time I had known him. More than any explanation about the job or the protocol or the forms. It's okay, I said. He opened the car door. I sat down. He walked around and sat at the wheel. Before starting I said, Caleb, yes, the next time your mother appears without warning. I need you to tell me first. He started the engine. Deal, he said. He drove toward my apartment. When we arrived he turned off the engine but didn't say anything immediately. Neither did I. Saturday, he said finally. What happens Saturday? Nothing planned. Just Saturday. I thought for 3 seconds. Saturday, I said. I got out of the car. He waited until I entered the building. I heard the engine move away when I was already inside. In the elevator I took out my phone. I opened the thread with Brandon. The one I had left on scene 4 days earlier. I deleted it. Not as a gesture, not as a statement, just because there was nothing there I needed to keep anymore. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.